It's a bit of a cold evening, but we've had some parts arrive for the Vauxhall Zafira, so let's open the box, take a look and see if we can get that back on the road. Let's take a look. You'll remember from the previous video the EGR valve that decided to give up on the Vauxhall Zafira that came apart into lots of pieces. Well, I managed to get a replacement for it, arrived really quickly actually, which is quite impressive. Now in the pack I've got 2 new gaskets, which is nice. That one's got a little bit of a dent in it, which isn't ideal, but they should be good. So there's our gaskets. And we've got the new EGR itself. Now I'm just going to compare it alongside, make sure it looks the same. So just compare it up. The bolts all look lined up as well. That's fine. The electrical component, just check the pins. You can see the number of pins are the same there. And that should do the job nicely. So we're going to need our old bolts that I took out of the last one. We're going to need our new gaskets, and then let's take it over to the car and get it fitted, and fingers crossed we're all going to be good. I've also cleaned out the channels, used an old toothbrush, gave all of these a nice bit of a clean up. Actually there's a little bit left, so I'm just going to give that surface there and that surface just a little bit of a clean up before we put the gaskets in place, and we'll bring the new EGR valve in and see how it fits. Giving that bit of a clean, let's place the gasket into place. That's them all bolted in. Let's connect the electrical connector back in. Just push that until it clicks into place. And there we go. That should be our new EGR in place. So let's get in the car and see if it'll start up. Of course, none of you watching told me that I'd forgot to put my water pipe fitting on, did you? Let's take this one back off and put the coolant return pipe, and then we can go and take a try. Let's try starting it up. Engine management light's gone, fault light's gone out, and it's stalled straight out. Let's try starting again. Now I think that was probably because I changed the fuel filter, so it will have needed to sort the fuel that's in the fuel filter bowl out, so I can kind of accept that one. Now that it's started again, it seems to be running, it's idling away. It sounds okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug my OBD scan tool in. Let's take a look and see if we've got any faults sat there. Now I've got it on my head unit here, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. We do still have a slightly rough idling. This surge control valve on this does need replacing again. So let's do a scan. No faults found. That's good news, everyone. Right, let's take it for a test drive. Let's take it for a drive and see how we get on. Well, it seems to be idling away okay. Doesn't seem to be rough running, which is good. The test is to see whether the turbo is actually coming on as well, because that was the problem that I was starting to have, and I think that was due to the EGR sticking, that it wouldn't boost. And remember, I was getting the P0299 fault. So what I'm going to do is drive up the road here, just get into a little bit of open space, and we'll try accelerating, and we'll see whether the car does it or not. This is the bit where we can see whether it's actually boosting and going okay. There we go, you can see the car is boosting as it should, which is great. Now that would normally be the point where it would have problems. On the first startup and getting more and more often, it wouldn't have been able to do that. It wouldn't have pulled away like it's just doing now. Well, I probably spoke too soon. I've just got the engine with the spanner light on, so it means that we do have a fault logged that we're going to need to take a look into. So I think what we'll do is we'll head back home and we'll take a look at that when we get back home. Now that I'm back home, let's take a look at the fault light. So the light that I had was that one, it's the car spanner light, and it had actually turned off again after I'd got some diesel. Let's plug the OBD in. Let's have a look and see if we can see whether there is a fault logged. I'm hoping it may just have been a one-off fault. Oh, there we go. So we've got a P0400 EGR flow fault. Now, and I thought I'd show you. So this one, if you remember, this is the faulty EGR valve itself that came apart. And this part here is the electric solenoid, and this is the bit that the ECU sends the signal to and will go in and out. Now this is the brand new component. They just screw on. If you remember in the previous video, I unscrewed this. When this is connected, I get the fault code that you can see. I'll put it on screen there. I get the P0400, which is where it's not responding correctly. So my guess is this electrical component is faulty on the brand new one that I've got, or it's a cheap clone and doesn't work properly. What I did was I took the old one off this body and put it back on the car, because it was the mechanics that failed. Okay then, well, I've done some more work. As you've seen, what I've done is I've swapped the electrical component on the EGR for the old one, because it seems like the brand new EGR I got, the electrical valve, the solenoid valve, is the one at fault. I've taken it for a bit of a drive now after clearing the codes, and you can see quite happily we have no codes logged, which is great news. So it does look like it was the EGR, but we've had two problems, which has been fantastic, really. So the new EGR was faulty. Another lesson learnt there, buying the cheap one. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, I was quite lucky that I could combine the electrical solenoid part of it with the mechanical bit that had failed. Really hope that has solved it. Might be worth, if you're having similar problems, you can take a look into some of these problems. Take a look at the EGR if you're getting the same codes. Hopefully this has helped you. I'm not going to put a link to the part that I ordered off eBay because I do think that was faulty. So do take a look. They are expensive if you go for the genuine, and I think that was where my problem was. But for now, that's the Vauxhall Zafira back up and running. So fingers crossed, all okay, and I'll see you in the next video. I could continue making updates to this EGR video for weeks and weeks, but I thought I'd address something because in the last video, in the breakdown video, part 1, a lot of people were commenting and mentioning how bad the EGR was, but also that this is a split collar, and that the piece that I thought had snapped and smashed into two was actually supposed to be in 2 halves, and it's the way that the collar fits. So I thought I'd have a dig, because I put all the parts in a bowl here, so I thought I'd have a dig and we'll just quickly have a look at that and address those comments. So this is answering Mr. Paul Carr, Ali Gow, Neil Dean, John Healy. Thank you so much for commenting, guys. So this is the collar that has come off. Now the trouble is this camera's not going to get very close. I'm going to try to take some macro shots of it, but to me those edges actually look sheared, and I know that a lot of people have said that this is a split collar, and the split collar is supposed to sit on the top here. It's really difficult to do this kind of close up because you can't see where that notch lives and that this would sit on the top of, but looking at this over and over, my thinking is this side is dull. This is the side that was away from the inside, and that's dull because it gets little bits of soot and it's aged. This side is obviously on the inside of that rod there, and you can see that's dulled as well. However, the edges of where I believe it's split are shiny. You can see it in the light, and the fact that those are shiny goes back to suggesting that it did actually snap. So I'm probably not going to get a proper answer to this. I'm not sure. I'm not taking the new one apart, that's for sure, but I think the summary is this was coked up and clogged like crazy. I think replacing it has been the right thing to do. Whether or not that collar is supposed to be a split collar or not, I have no idea. I'm happy that the car's working again, and I'm going to go with that. So, but thank you so much for commenting on the last video, guys. Really is good to get some feedback and some information. So if you do know something that I don't, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on any of this, but please do put a comment there and let me know what you think. Actually, just whilst I'm talking away here, I'm putting this back together. I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, so I just thought I'd quickly address that, guys.